Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new episode of Wrestling with Awareness. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, my good friend Arnold from the Let's Do It Together and Pro and Bro Wrestling podcast. How are you doing today, man?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Great week to be a wrestling fan.
Of course, absolutely. We're here to speak some pro wrestling and talk about WrestleMania, give our predictions and things like that. Before we kick that off, Arnold here, a lot of you guys may know he has a podcast with Fred Rosser, aka Darren Young, where they interview a lot of professional wrestlers called the Pro and Bro Wrestling Podcast. But this year, Arnold did launch his own solo podcast called the Let's Do It Together podcast, which has been a great listen. Tell everybody about it.
I feel like the pandemic is the source of the podcast. And I kind of took a page from your book with Wrestling with Awareness. It kind of touches on mental health. And last year, I experienced my first anxiety attack, and I had no idea what it was. And, I just found last year to be such a lesson that we all need to kind of just step back, breathe, connect with one another. And I got a glimpse of how it's like for people who deals with mental health issues. And, I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're alone. So the main source of the podcast is just to let people know, like, hey, man, like, let's go on this journey of life together. And, I just want to provide them with some distraction sometimes, some motivation, some entertainment, but I just want them to feel at ease with life. That's the main source of the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. It's a very good podcast, and it's for the better, and it helps a lot of people out there. So make sure you guys all check that out. I'll link everything down below in the description for all of you guys to check that out.
Thanks,
so
man.
yeah, of course. Congratulations on that. It's going pretty well, and I can't wait to see where it takes you. And of course, with everything that's going on in the wrestling world, before we touch on WrestleMania, we gotta acknowledge something crazy, something that kind of feels as big as WrestleMania in a way for some reason. I never thought a podcast would feel as big as WrestleMania, but Chris Jericho is going to be on Stone Cold Steve Austin's Broken Skull Sessions on the WWE Network for Peacock. That's crazy because for the casual wrestling fans, Chris Jericho signed to All Elite Wrestling, AEW. It's WWE's their biggest source of competition right now in 2021, and nobody thought we'd see the day. And we were actually talking about this before we started recording. We just saw a clip of it where he mentioned Sammy Guevara, so I'm wondering if they even touch on AEW in it. It looks like they do. What do you think? What do you expect to come out of this?
Well, at first I just want to say I haven't had this feeling in a really long time. The first time I saw on Instagram, I literally had chills, and I didn't really have those chills when I found out Chris Jericho was joining AEW, because I guess him working with New Japan kind of softened the blow that he's gonna work with different companies. So when he joined AEW, I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of expected. He was already, hanging with the Bucks and Cody and all that. But seeing him back on WWE programming, I was like, oh crap. Like, it took me back to like my childhood where I would see my favorite WWF wrestlers pop up in Nitro. And I think it's just a different time, and I'm glad that WWE is starting to adapt and just be more open-minded on how things work. And I think it would be really, really cringe and really, really dumb of them if they don't touch on AEW, because it would be like this big elephant in the room, right? And you're just gonna like avoid AEW during a 1 whole hour podcast. So I feel like they have to touch on it, and they're probably gonna talk about his reasons for leaving and all that.
Of course. And in this day and age, it's like we're seeing so much unity in professional wrestling. Like AEW has been working with Impact. They've briefly worked with New Japan. I won't be surprised if ROH gets into the swing of things with them as well. So, and a lot of people are listening. A lot of people are going to be like, why is he even going to bring this up? Because there's no way. But at this point in time, I do kind of think anything is possible. Do you think we could get an WWE and AEW alliance out of this?
Sure. Like, anything's possible, but to be honest, I don't see it. Like, I think this is as far as WWE is going to go with working with AEW, because Vince likes to think WWE is like three brands in itself already. Maybe he thinks like NXT superstars going to Raw is already like, whoa. So I don't think.
Yeah.
I think this is as far as we're gonna get with AEW and WWE. How about you, man?
Yeah, like on paper, I do think that's as far as we're gonna go. But man, I just can't help but like fantasy book in my mind,
Sure.
like Cody Rhodes and Triple H. Could you
Oh,
imagine that? Like the amount of matches that we could have. John Moxley and Roman Reigns, arguably the two best from
yeah.
each company, going at it.
Yes.
Seth
Absolutely.
Rollins and Kenny Omega has been a dream match of mine for a while. I know it's like the slimmest chances in the world that it could happen, but if that ever does happen,
Weirdest things have happened though, so
that's true.
you'll never know, man.
That's true. We will never know. And on to WrestleMania here, because WrestleMania is looking very good. It's a 2-night event once again. I'm personally not the biggest fan of the whole 2-night thing. I know a lot of people say, oh, but the show's way longer when it's on one night. And to
Mhm.
me, as blatant as this sounds, and as I don't want to sound inconsiderate, but in a way, I just think WrestleMania is the biggest show of the year. Not everybody has to be on the card. You could
Mhm.
have it in one night, and you can make it a shorter show. I'm not saying make it like 2 hours, but
Yeah.
4 hours is even enough for WrestleMania. So, what do you think of the whole 1 night, 2 night thing?
Well, even when it was one night and it was like a long show, as a wrestling fan, I don't mind it at all. It could be like 10 hours for all I care, and I'll watch every single minute of it because it's once a year, like it leads up to this. I honestly don't mind the 2 night thing because it kind of gives you something more to look forward to. Like Saturday's over and you're like, oh no, like man, WrestleMania, I have to wait another year, and you're like, oh wait, no, WrestleMania again tomorrow. So I think that's cool. But yeah, man, I think this is gonna be interesting because even though last year was the first ever 2 night event, it's gonna be a different feeling because last year was thrown in last minute with the Performance Center. But this time we're gonna see 2 nights of WrestleMania being WrestleMania, the grand spectacle that it's supposed to be. So we'll find out how it's gonna feel, man. And I saw the Super Bowl and I saw how big the stadium is, and I think it's gonna look really good. So me personally, I'm looking forward for the 2 night event.
I'm really excited, and I'm so excited to have fans again. I know some people are like, it's 25,000. That's not much for WrestleMania. In this day and age right now, in this COVID-19
Yeah.
world, this is huge.
Oh
And
yeah.
I can't wait to have the feeling of 25,000 wrestling fans on their feet once again. Who do you think's going to open the show? Like, I feel like I
Mm,
heard they're not going to have a pre-show on the first night, and I agree that they
interesting.
shouldn't, because the first entrance should be like really special.
You're right, man. Oof.
Yeah, I wish Jeff Hardy was on the card so he could open it up with no more words
I
again. But
know. Yeah, I
yeah,
know. I missed that soundtrack, man. I think it's gonna open with Riddle and Sheamus. I think
yeah,
Riddle's gonna pop in, and he's kind of like not wrestling style, but like how he makes fans feel. It's kind of similar to R-Truth, where it's like, all right, it's party time, and like R-Truth
yeah.
here, all like welcome guys to the event. So I think Matt Riddle is gonna kick it off. So I know that last week they just added the bird effect as he kicks his like flip flops. So I don't know. I think they're gonna do more stuff with this entrance, but I think it's gonna be for the U.S. Championship, Riddle and Sheamus to kick things off.
I could definitely see that, hearing the bro, bro, bro chants. It'll be
Yeah.
really interesting. And a lot of these guys haven't been out in a like proper crowd in forever. It's gonna be
Mhm.
curious to see how the fans actually respond. Like you said,
Yeah,
like Roman Reigns as a heel. I'm wondering if they're gonna boo him or
that's true.
cheer him. I'm very curious about that.
But you know what? I'm curious to know if we're actually gonna hear the real response of the fans, because with it being only 25,000 and that stadium being big, I know they're gonna have the help of like special enhancement audio to make it seem like it's a packed house, and that's what WWE's been doing for their shows recently. It's not like real fans like reaction, so I wonder how much of real fans reaction we're actually gonna hear.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. And I wonder, and I think this is going to be awesome. And looking at night one here, the first match on the card, according to CBS, I don't think this will actually be the first match, but Well, going by our predictions, we'll go by the order that they gave us. So, in the tag team turmoil match in night 1, the winner faces Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler on night 2 for the women's tag team championships. Naomi and Lana versus Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke versus the Riot Squad versus Natalya and Tamina. Who do you see taking this one?
Natalya and Tamina, because I think it makes sense. Tamina's been in the game as long as the Usos have, and with all due respect to her, there hasn't been any career highlights of her. She hasn't held any type of championship, so I think WrestleMania might be her moment with her, contributing to the legacy of her family. And not only that, but the tag team championship means so much to Natty, being with her dad, being one of the, successful tag team champions of all time. I think that'll be a WrestleMania moment there if they win, because again, like Naomi and Lana as a tag team, like you just feel like they're thrown together. I wouldn't understand why they would have the tag team titles on them, and I think it would just make sense for Natalya and Tamina to win it.
Yeah, of course. I could definitely see that happening. I kind of feel like Billie Kay is going to be added to this match, maybe with Carmella as a chance for a chance. So I feel like none of these teams are going to win. I feel like it's going to be Carmella and Billie Kay who enter themselves in and win. It should be interesting nonetheless.
Yeah.
And then the next match, I haven't been the biggest fan of the way it's been built up. I feel like the next match has kind of had a corny build up, but I know the match will be great because both these guys are great and it'll be extreme. Shane McMahon versus Braun Strowman in a steel cage match. I know Shane can do some special things inside the steel cage, so I'm sure the match will be great, but I just kind of feel like this whole storyline has been built off of, Braun's big, so he's stupid.
I know, that's really rushed, and also like out of nowhere. I don't even during their segments, I just, as a wrestling fan, I don't believe it, just because again, out of nowhere, and I just feel like Shane should stop being in WrestleMania matches. Like, I love Shane as a performer. I think he's still in great shape. He can still fly. I love his matches with X-Pac and even Vince. He's a great performer, but it doesn't make sense for him to be on the card now. All the previous matches that Shane has done in WrestleMania, to me personally, it's forgettable. Shane versus The Undertaker, okay, cool, but that match didn't make sense at all. I don't think he was worthy of an Undertaker match. And Shane versus The Miz, again, you just don't look back at it oh man, I remember that match. It just felt like a filler, and it just felt like, The Undertaker needed an opponent that night. The Miz just needed an opponent that night. And the same thing goes for Braun. We have nothing for Braun. He should be on the card. Let's push Shane in there and, make it happen. So obviously Braun's going to win, I think. Or else if Shane wins, then I don't know where they would go from there. But I think it's just having that match is just for Braun to have that victory on WrestleMania and for Braun to be on the card. But to be honest with you, I'm not really looking forward to that match because I kind of already see it in my head how it's going to go down.
Yeah, and a thing with, I don't know, when it came to Shane, ever since his return, I feel like ever since he turned heel, that's when I kind of went sour on him.
Yeah.
And not in the good way where it's I don't like him because he's a heel. It's in a way I'm not paying attention to my screen. It's See, when he came back as a babyface, it was fresh, it was new. I was fine with the match with Taker, personally, and the match with Styles at the following year's Mania. After that, I feel like he could have been left off the card. But keeping him as a babyface, because you've already got heel Vince. Even if Vince is a babyface online, everybody thinks he's a heel. And then you got Stephanie McMahon, who plays a heel character the best. Having that one McMahon in the mix, it's a babyface that's looking out for the best interest of the fans, and he's done it better than Vince or Stephanie. I just feel like it would have been a lot more fun having him as a babyface, and not even wrestling at this point, because I do agree. I feel like after 33, he should have been left off the card. But going into this match, I predict Braun Strowman. I see no reason why this feud should continue. So I'll go with Braun Strowman. Next up, the Raw Tag Team Championships, the New Day versus AJ Styles and Omas. I'm curious to see how Omas does in the ring because he has the look of a star. He's a
big
huge
time.
guy.
Yeah.
And the tag team titles does kind of feel out of place for AJ Styles, but I'm also not completely against it because his goal is becoming a Grand Slam champion.
Yeah.
So why not go for the tag titles? What are you thinking for this match?
Same. I think AJ and Omos is gonna take it because for one, it's kind of like his in-ring debut, and they want to make an impact. Make him seem like a threat, and I think this is the best way to do it. And again, the New Day, they don't need the titles. They're fine without it. It's just like another hardware for them right now on their like 12th, 13th, 14th reign.
Yeah.
So it's not that like meaningful. But I think it will be more meaningful, like you said, for AJ to win it because it'll solidify him as being a Grand Slam champion in the company. And, he said it in a promo where he said, oh, my bucket list is running short. So, I mean, it makes sense, right? AJ becomes Grand Slam champion and Omos gets his first in-ring victory on the grandest stage of them all and also presents to the WWE Universe what a giant and what a dominant force he is.
Of course. And it's also like, because as someone who looks like him, you don't come across athletes like that very often. So you want to push him in a safe way. And I think this is the safest way because let's say they win the titles and then WWE realizes, okay, maybe he's not the type of guy we thought he was. We can still protect him. AJ can take the pin when they lose the titles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's perfect. So I'm also going with AJ Styles and Omos to win the Raw Tag Team titles. The next match is another match where I feel like the build could have kind of been better, but I'm so excited for this match because I think it's going to be great. And I've personally been to house shows, and in the parking lot, I see these two riding together all the time. So I know they're probably very excited to do this together. Seth Rollins versus Cesaro.
Yeah.
I want Cesaro to win so bad. I'm a huge Seth Rollins fan, but I think Cesaro really deserves this moment. And I think they're going to do a great job. And hopefully this match can be the match that kind of like ends this whole Messiah gimmick. I think the Messiah gimmick's great, but I think it's run its course. So,
sure. Yeah. I think like both of them are really looking forward to it because they're like CrossFit and coffee buddies, They have in common. And I think same as you, man. I think Cesaro's gonna take it because Seth has had so many great WrestleMania moments, and he's gonna have more down the line, and I'm sure he's gonna have his moment for this weekend as well. But victory-wise, I think it makes sense for Cesaro to take the W because he needs it way more than Seth does. He needs to have that one solo victory on a WrestleMania card. And you're right. Yeah, I'm done with the Messiah Seth. It doesn't like connect with me anymore as much as it did back in the day, last year. Buddy Murphy, and even the APA when he had them as disciples, that's when it really connected. But now when it's just him, it doesn't really make sense. But I do hope that we get that suit Cesaro entrance back where he rips off his he comes and rips it off. I hope we get that back because I felt like that was very short lived. Like he did that for only a little bit before becoming the Bar with Sheamus.
If they want to have a lot of fun with this, the people who are in the front row, they should get Cesaro section signs. Again. Bring that back.
Might happen, man. You're right.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. So we're both going with Cesaro on that one.
You've been agreeing with all of them so far, huh? I think, except for the Raw Tag Team, maybe.
Yeah.
We mean the women's tag team.
The women's tag team.
Yeah.
So far we're on agreement here. Cesaro getting his Mania match. That match might also steal the show. You never know because both guys are really good. Yeah. And the next match, this is where some people might find my opinion on this a bit unpopular, but I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to the match, but I've enjoyed the build-up. Oh, I can't believe I'm saying I've enjoyed the build-up to this. Bad Bunny and Damian Priest versus The Miz and John Morrison.
Yeah.
I think Bad Bunny, you can tell he respects the business. I've read that he's been going to the Performance Center every single day, so he's obviously dedicated. He obviously wants to do this. He said this is a dream of his just to have one match, and he's got Damian Priest there to carry him through the match.
Sure.
Does struggle, so I'm fine with it. And I think the obvious winners here are Bad Bunny and Damian Priest. This is more of an attraction match. WrestleMania has always got some of those. What are you thinking for this one?
Exactly as you. I think it's an attraction match to bring more eyes to the company. And sometimes WWE has celebrities where it's just like really cringe. Like I remember one WrestleMania, they had some cast members from SNL, and it just didn't connect. I think the
Oh
first
yeah.
one ever was when they had the Three Stooges like on Raw, when they would have those like celebrity guests. Like I hated that so much. But I think like Bad Bunny, man, like I'm sure he's a fan. Like I'm sure he's a fan, but like I'm not really concerned whether he's a fan or not. I just think he's doing a really great job. Like I feel like if he ever wants to be like a official WWE talent, like he fits right in because I love his selling. I love his believability when he's on the mic. I don't think any of the stuff that he's done looks fake or forced. I think he's done a great job, man. Even like when he got jumped by Morrison and Miz, like the way he reacted to those like punches to the stomach, like it looked real. Like it looked like
Yeah.
he sold it really well. So and not to mention it's so smart WWE to do that and how they got him, because like he's literally the biggest musician right now. The fact that he just won a
Yeah.
Grammy this year, you know what I mean? He brings in so much eyes, a great like he has a huge cult following. But yeah, you're right. I think Bad Bunny and Damian Priest like has to win. That's almost like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's one of those matches where like if I were to really bet money on something, then that would be the one.
And I'm glad you touch on like how believable he's been lately. Even that like 2 weeks ago he punched the Miz. That came
Yeah,
off so
it
believable.
looked like a legit punch, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't a working punch. Like he really
Yeah.
punched. It looked like
For
he really
first,
punched him.
yeah, for a second I'm like, wait, was that a work or did he
Yeah.
accidentally punch him for real?
There's
Yeah.
also the sound, like the sound
Yeah,
that.
the sound. It was great. And then the promo that he cut this past Monday, obviously he doesn't speak fluent English, but I think he did fairly well. Like
Yeah.
I was believing what he was saying. He was saying I grew up loving Stone Cold, Steve Austin, Triple H, all these guys. I respect this business. Or when he was 24/7 champion and he literally gave the title back to R-Truth. He said, "You know what? I respect this business. Just give me that replica of the smoking skull belt." I'm like, all right. If I was a fan, I'd probably be doing the same thing too.
Right? Yeah, same,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. So then we got the next matchup. Well, the next two people have been debating on what should close night one. To me, either one, it's a closing match because I refuse to acknowledge two main events of WrestleMania, even if there's two nights. To me, the real main event is Roman, Edge,
Yep.
and Daniel Bryan.
Absolutely.
But to close night one, people have been debating Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair or Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre.
Okay.
What do you think? What do you think should close? I personally don't care which one, but like, if I had to pick, Drew kind of got robbed of a closing match last year, so I'd probably pick him.
I'm gonna say, it's a good one. I haven't thought about this, but I guess I'll say Drew and Bobby for to close it. On the other hand, I would love to see another like women's match, like being one of the main events for the night. But I don't know, man. So it's like this right now. Like, yeah, you made a lot of good points. I don't know. you called me out. I'm gonna change my answer. I think Sasha and Bianca Belair should close.
That's a fair answer too, because Bianca did win the Women's Royal Rumble. I probably would pick that if Drew if Drew wasn't in the position that he was now, where last year he got no fans. But in reality, like we said earlier, this is just a closing match. Night two's last match is the real main event, because people will argue this, but at the end of the day, it's the 37th WrestleMania. Unless night two is WrestleMania 38,
right.
There's one main event. So,
for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no problem. Go on.
Yeah, I think I feel bad for Drew, because even though he got his big win last year, it was at the Performance Center, and it wasn't even at the Thunderdome. Like there was no crowd reaction. It was dead silent. It was super awkward. But you could never take that away from him, that he won the WWE Championship during an unprecedented time in history. Like he was the champion during that time. But I don't think he should win this year, because for one, I think WWE's been doing a great job building up Bobby Lashley. the whole presentation and how he led.
I agree, and I think Bobby Lashley should win as well. I'm hoping Bobby Lashley retains. I'm a big fan of Drew McIntyre. I think he's carried us through this whole pandemic. But another reason why I want Drew to lose is, like you said, John Cena and Roman Reigns, phenomenal talents, right? I was personally a kid during the John Cena era, so I never booed him. I was a teenager when Roman Reigns was a babyface, so I was booing Roman.
Right.
The thing is that I like Drew, and I think he's got the star power, in which case, if he is the next guy, I want to try to break this cycle of people hating the top guy, if it's possible. And I think the best way to kind of do that is maybe have him out of the title picture for a little while after Mania. So, absolutely. Yeah, of course. I think it's in his best interest for a little while just to stay out of it, because then when he goes back into it, people are going to be like, oh, it's been a while since.
Yeah, it's like back to like, all right, we're on this journey with you again, you know? So yeah. And like at this point, Drew doesn't need the championship anymore. He's already a 2-time champion. Like being himself is already like a main event status, so he doesn't need it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So both of us predicting and hoping Bobby Lashley retains against Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. Yeah. And man, fantasy booking world, Brock Lesnar would come out and just F5 them both. But
I think that's gonna happen, man. Like I really
think he'll be there.
I think it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons why they're pushing Bobby so much.
Yeah, I think that match is definitely SummerSlam or maybe even Mania next year, depending on how long Bobby holds the title. So hopefully Brock Lesnar can appear at Mania this year. And then moving on to the SmackDown Women's Championship, Sasha Banks defending against Bianca Belair. I think this match is going to be phenomenal. I think they're going to tear it up. I think they also have a chance to steal the show, just like Seth Rollins and Cesaro do. And I think this is Bianca's time. I think Bianca Belair should win the title. She won the main event. She won the Royal Rumble convincingly. Yeah. And I think this is her chance. I think Sasha Banks would even agree that is Bianca's chance. So I'm going to Bianca.
Okay, for sure. So I think this is our second disagreement.
Yeah.
I think Sasha should win it because like her first few championship reigns has been really short. Like her back and forth with Charlotte has been really short. And like, there was even like a joke before that like, Sasha hasn't successfully defended like her championship. Like she always loses it. And I think this reign needs to solidify Sasha even more as a fighting champion. Like I just feel like she needs to retain one that people will remember. So of course in WrestleMania with her coming in and retaining the SmackDown Championship, that'll be the highlight of her career, like going in as champ, leaving as champ. And that's not to say that Sasha isn't already a bona fide star, because she is. But I just think she needs it. That's the victory she needs. Whereas Bianca Belair being on the WrestleMania card and wrestling for the SmackDown Women's Championship is already her victory. Like, because it's kind of like, it's okay if she loses on WrestleMania because she has a long road ahead of her. And not to say that Sasha doesn't, because they're close in age. But I think Sasha just needs it more so people can take her more seriously as a fighting champion and someone who doesn't lose the championship right away. Whereas Bianca Belair, she could win it at SummerSlam. They could have more matches and then it could be like back and forth. But I personally would want to see Sasha retain, because it would be nice to see her retain on the grandest stage of them all.
Yeah, of course. I think that's definitely a fair argument right there, and I'll be happy to see whichever one wins.
Yeah, same.
So you've got Sasha, I've got Bianca. Now we're moving into night 2 of WrestleMania. We'll start things off with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler defending against who I predicted to be Carmella and Billie Kay, and I believe you predicted Natalya and Tamina. I personally see Carmella and Billie Kay winning if it's them versus Nia and Shayna.
Yeah, I think it's entertaining either way, because I think Carmella's a great talent. I think Billie Kay's hilarious. I feel like they shouldn't have broken up Iconics. They were like my favorite like duo, like hilarious, man. But like even okay, so like with my prediction, Tamina and Natalya, that makes more sense, because like the next night, Tamina and Nia Jax also has history.
Oh yeah, that is true.
So it's gonna be a little bit more like, keeping it spicy. So I
Yeah.
think it would make more that kind of backs up my prediction of them winning because they'll win. Like it means a lot. First time Tamina has that spotlight, and then second night now it's kind of like ooh that they were former tag teams, and now they kind of teased that at the Royal Rumble. I don't know if you remember where like Nia had to choose between Shayna and Tamina, but or was it Naomi? But anyways, I think that's why I think Natalya and Tamina's gonna be there.
Of course, and yeah, with that happening, do you see Nia and Shayna retaining, or do you see Natalya and Tamina?
Natalya, man, like
Natalya.
Sometimes I forget who the tag team champs is. Like I feel like Shayna's like better off as both of them are better off as singles competitor. Like they're meant to be singles competitor. I mean, Nia Jax, they say she's like the dominant, the irresistible force. Like she needs to be a special attraction, and so does Shayna Baszler. She's like a mixed martial artist, man. Like
Shayna Baszler. I feel like she should have won last year against
me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I feel like they need to be looked up as like Brock Lesnar's,
Yeah.
So to me, no disrespect, but like having them as tag team champions, kind of like a downgrade. Like
Yeah,
even
I
though
agree.
they're champions, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, they're on the show. Okay, they're champions, but it doesn't mean anything. So it would mean more on Tamina and Natalya. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think they should drop the title at that point. Maybe feud with each other afterwards. That could be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see where that goes. We both have Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler dropping the women's tag team titles at WrestleMania. Next up is Matt Riddle. I still refuse to call him Riddle versus Sheamus. Yeah, I don't know what the point was.
Like WWE fans like have a hard time remembering like first and last names. Like we had to like I don't get it, man.
Yeah, I don't get it either. The United States title, Matt Riddle versus Sheamus. I got Matt Riddle retaining, but I wouldn't be surprised if they put the title on Sheamus here. I think this match will be really good. I think a lot of people are overlooking it. What are you thinking?
I think just like you, it could go either way because one can argue like, oh, Sheamus doesn't need the U.S. Championship. He's already held it. It's like it's Riddle's time. But Sheamus has been doing some great work with Drew, and this could be a way for WWE to reward him. And like if he does win the U.S. Championship, it might be a different run for him. I think they're gonna make the U.S. Championship, elevate the U.S. Championship, and make it feel like a World Championship if Sheamus is holding it. I think, I'm gonna say Sheamus.
Yeah. All right. So I've got Matt Riddle. You've got Sheamus. Should be a very good match.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, I wish this match. It's Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I'm really excited because I know these guys are probably super excited to work together.
They can fight for eternity.
Yeah, they could fight for eternity, and I'd be happy. It's just the whole Logan Paul dynamic. I don't know how I'm feeling about it. I'm not once again, special attraction. I don't watch Logan Paul stuff, but I'm not against him being on WrestleMania per se. I just wish it was in a different dynamic because I've always looked at Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn as a serious rivalry.
Yes, yeah.
But now I feel like there's gonna be a lot of shenanigans involved if Logan Paul is there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've got Kevin Owens winning. I think Logan Paul is going to help him. Then he's going to hit Logan Paul with a stunner after. That's what I think is going to happen. What about you?
I think, for one, okay, like with the whole Logan Paul situation, obviously it's also just like Bad Bunny, more eyes, and they, props to WWE for getting another what's the word, relevant star like in the WWE universe. But I know that Logan's not a wrestling fan. Like I know he's not like a diehard wrestling fan. He didn't like.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's like he knows who Stone Cold and The Rock is. But with that said, he did just like Bad Bunny. He did a really good job on SmackDown. Yeah. Like his mic skills were believable. It wasn't over the top, and it felt real. It felt real, like as if if we were to go back and for me, if I were to go back in time, because back in '98, I thought wrestling was just shoot, like the whole thing was just shoot. So that's how he made it feel like, it felt real. So But yeah, it is a shame that like Logan was in the Sami Zayn Kevin Owens picture because again,
Yeah, that's what I'm
feeling like
saying.
yeah, it should be been spotlighted in a whole different way. But it is what it is. But I think Sammy needs to win, man, because if Sammy doesn't win, then what's this all about? Like, like
Yeah,
he's been like the joke for such a long time. Artist Collective, Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura dumped him. Sure, he was the IC champion. Like, sure, he got that win last year at Mania, but like, he needs to be a credible heel. Like, he can't just be a joke all the time. He can still play that part of being like, a conspiracy theory victim. He can still play that
yeah,
role, but he also needs to back it up with a few wins once in a while. And Kevin got that WrestleMania wins against Rollins last year, so he doesn't need one. But to me, like Sammy needs this, so he can go on SmackDown next week and said, "I told you so. I told you so." So there's like layers to his character.
yeah. Of course. I thought, like, you know what? I think you kind of make me. I think you're having me jump on the bandwagon a little bit. Now I kind of want Sami Zayn to win. Now that you said that, and I don't know, something just popped in my head. Like,
And Logan still can get stunned.
yeah,
But
Logan can still get stunned in the middle of the match.
yeah,
Sami can win. But part of me is like thinking, what if we did see these guys, like, the match gets so intense and it gets serious, and what if we saw like a double turn by any chance?
how? Oh, got it. Okay.
Owens turns heel, Zayn turns babyface. They just have to figure out what they're going to do with the conspiracy stuff the next week on SmackDown after. But I don't
Yeah,
know, that could be interesting as well. I love the dynamic between the two.
me too.
Next,
And the
yeah,
fact that they're best friends, like it's really cool. And they got into this business together. It's like it's dope, man. And now they're
yeah,
like now as brothers, they can say like, man, like we had a WrestleMania match together against each other. How cool is that when we were just like fans before? So it's a win-win situation for both of them.
yeah, absolutely. And then the next match here, and I'm actually pretty happy that these guys are getting a one-on-one match because I've enjoyed the way that these two have worked together and built up this feud. For
Mhm.
the Intercontinental Championship, Big E defending against Apollo Crews. I've liked the way that they've built this up.
Yeah.
Apollo Crews' whole accent thing. I still don't know how I feel about it completely,
Yeah.
but they've been doing a good job, and I find like the hatred between the two very believable. So I kind of want Apollo Crews to win in a way. I'm just curious to see how he'd be with the title at this point. What are you thinking?
I can definitely see that. But for me, like I love the fact that Apollo has a shift in character. I do as a person kind of like feel for him because I'm like, man, now you have to like do this accent like for a really long time. You have to commit. That sucks. But I think I would be happy if either of them win, but I'm leaning towards Big E because I think this is like how they're kind of pushing it. It's like, oh, Kofi had his time. Now Big E needs to thrive as a solo superstar. So for him to retain the IC championship will mean more to his IC title reign. Whereas Apollo, if he loses, it's okay because he still has other things to make him a star. Like, sure, he doesn't have the championship, but he still has his character, and he still has those two bodyguard men to heighten his character. And it's if he does lose, it gives him more fuel and more reasons for him to be a really good heel, saying that, oh, I got robbed at Mania. This is like unacceptable. And there were like little teases of him joining Roman's group because they would like talk backstage. So it's more fuel to his fire if he loses. So I think it would make sense if Big E wins that match.
Definitely, definitely. Both ways looks very good here. You've got Big E, I've got Apollo Crews.
Mhm.
Should be an interesting dynamic. And speaking of interesting dynamics, the Fiend versus Randy Orton. We still don't know if this is a normal match. I'm hoping it's a Firefly Funhouse match.
Mhm.
Um, I think the Fiend's got to win this one now since Orton already burned him alive.
Yeah.
So I'm going with the Fiend here. I think this will be very interesting. If it's a Firefly Funhouse match, hopefully we see the return of John Cena in some sort of way.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a good
yeah.
one. A little personal side story. When I went to Raw with Fred, I met Bray Wyatt backstage, and he was like the sweetest guy. And he's like, oh, like I don't know, man. He just seemed super super positive. Like I bumped into a lot of superstars, so we just kind of like, hey, how's it going, passing by. But Bray was the one that actually treated you like a human, like like hey,
Yeah.
it's fine. So I think obviously the Fiend is gonna win because I say this a lot, but like Randy doesn't need the victory, and I think it just makes sense for the Fiend to get his revenge. So to me, it's not about the conclusion of the match that I'm curious about because I'm like 99% that's gonna be the Fiend, but I'm more curious about the layout, just like you, what the match is gonna be. And there's been talks that the Fiend that we're seeing now is not even the final look of
Oh
the Fiend,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Something got leaked where like there's a picture of the Fiend wearing like a black drape over his burnt scars. So I'm really curious to see if we're gonna see a different look for the Fiend at Mania, and I'm really interested to see the presentation and his entrance.
Yeah, his entrance, that'll be a big one too. I'm really excited to see what's going on there. I'm wondering if this will still be Firefly Funhouse because it is in front of fans in person. But I feel like even if I was there in person, like one match, if it's as interesting as the Firefly
Yes,
Funhouse,
you don't mind, right?
being on the via satellite, I wouldn't mind it. So
Yeah.
hopefully,
Maybe they could do both, where like it's just kind of like the Goldust and Roddy Piper match, where like half I don't know if have you seen that at WrestleMania 12?
yeah, of course, classic.
Half of that was like taped weeks in advance, and they only did their part when it was actually into the ring. So they could do something like that, where like 80% of the match is already pre-recorded, and then 20% the finish can be in the middle of the ring, and that's what they do. So
If I'm not mistaken, looking back at last year's WrestleMania, I'm pretty sure John Cena did make his entrance, and then the lights went out, and then he was in the Firefly Funhouse.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's how. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it was. So
Yeah.
that would be interesting.
You're right.
Next,
You're right. It was like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
So they could even do it like that.
Yeah.
But next up is for the Raw Women's Championship. This one's a no-brainer for me. Asuka versus Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley's got to win, especially
Yeah.
after losing to Charlotte last year. I think she's really earned this victory. And Asuka, she's held the title for a while. I think it's time for her reign to finish now. Great women's wrestler. Love to see her hold the title again, but I think it's Rhea Ripley's time.
Same. But I think like this situation for Rhea Ripley is one of those moments in life where you feel like, oh, everything happens for a reason. Because last year, they did that segment of Rhea Ripley looking over the stadium and going like, wow, can't believe that I'm gonna be performing here. But obviously she didn't end up performing there. She performed at the Performance Center and she lost. So this time around, now she gets to perform at the stadium and she could win. So it's even better, right?
Yeah.
And it's not for the NXT championship, no disrespect, but it's for the Raw Women's Championship, like even an even bigger championship in my eyes.
Yeah, definitely.
So again, it's one of those like, okay, everything happens to reason because I'm supposed to, win like this.
Yeah, of course, definitely. So I couldn't agree more. It definitely is like a real life like showing of everything happens for a reason. So and I think that's a great story to tell. So we both got Rhea Ripley winning. Sure, that'll be a great match. But next up is the main event of WrestleMania. Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against Edge and Daniel Bryan in a triple threat match. I love the dynamic that's been shown between these three guys.
Yep.
It's been very entertaining. I can't wait to see where this all leads. As someone here, I'm a huge Edge mark. Anybody who
You are, man. I always see your posts.
anybody who asks me,
You're an Edge head.
knows I'm an Edge head, so I'm going with Edge here. I think this is going to be great, and I think like you can protect Roman Reigns here. Edge can pin Daniel Bryan, and I know Roman Reigns has been on a collision course as a heel. Edge can pin Bryan, but as I've argued with my friends before, I think Roman Reigns is at that level of star power now where even if it did stay a one-on-one match and Edge pinned him, I think he would have been fine because he's about 9 years in. So many people are like, no, that's like Goldberg beating The Fiend. I'm like, no. This is like when The Rock beat John Cena because Roman's 9 years in. Cena was 10 years in at that point.
Yeah.
It was fine. It didn't hurt Cena. It wouldn't hurt Roman. I'm very excited this is a triple threat match. A part of me is like, Roman and Edge had a little bit more unpredictability, which is a little bit more fun.
True.
But I still think this match will be great. And I really want Edge to win here, so I'm going with Edge. What about you? What are you thinking?
Before my predictions, I just want to say I had no idea. I totally forgot until WWE brought this up on their Instagram that all three of them, this is their second chance in life. Of course, not in life for Edge and Daniel Bryan, but for Edge, career-ending injury. Daniel Bryan, career-ending injury. Roman Reigns, life-threatening, illness, even bigger.
Of course.
So all these, those factors, it just makes it a victory already being on the main event of WrestleMania because they all got back to the level that they always wanted to be. With that said, I don't see Daniel Bryan winning because I think Daniel Bryan is perfect for the role that he's in now. He loves still being in the spotlight, still having his moments, but it's all about elevating other talents.
Yeah.
So I can't see another WrestleMania moment because you can't duplicate like something that already happened before. You just can't recreate that moment because
it won't be the same.
Yeah, it's a disservice to the first one. Edge. Like my thing is like if Edge were supposed to win, then why didn't they just keep it a one-on-one match? So I think I don't think Edge will win because just like I said in previous predictions, I think for him being in the main event is his victory. It's his victory. Winning the Royal Rumble and being in the main event, that's kind of like, wow, like I got back to the top. So I think that's his victory. Whereas Roman, not to say that he needs to retain, but it just justifies his head of the table character even
Of course.
He doesn't win. And it's been a while that WWE has ended a WrestleMania where the heel wins. It's always been a feel moment for the past few years. So just to keep it non-predictable, I think it'll be nice for Roman to retain and as a heel.
Yeah, of course. And a lot of interesting things to keep in mind is I believe this is 10 years to the day that 9 or 10 years to the day that Edge announced his retirement.
So whoa, wow.
That's something to keep in mind here. But also, Roman's huge heel run though, like I wouldn't be surprised if they don't want to have him lose quite yet. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a tough one to predict. I'm going with Edge. You're going with Roman Reigns?
I'm gonna go Roman, yeah.
You're going with Roman? It'll be a good one. It'll definitely be a good one.
Either way, I'm happy. Whoever wins, I'm
of
happy.
Course. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
A good match.
Same. Of course, really good match, and I can't wait to see it. So, with that being said, those are our WrestleMania 37 predictions. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Social media on Instagram, I am at Telagaarta, and also Let's Do This Together podcast, and also Pro and Bro Wrestling, and yeah, YouTube channel. My name Arnold Telagaarta. That's about it, man.
Absolutely. Links to all that stuff will be in the description below. Hopefully I can get this up sooner rather than later because WrestleMania is this weekend and it is a 2-night event, so it should be really good. I thank everybody for listening. We've just predicted WrestleMania. We've just wrestled the mind, and we have just talked everything pro wrestling here with Arnold from the Let's Do It Together podcast. So make sure you guys go check it out. Thank you all for listening, and peace out.